Hey, this is Kyler with Write and Direct. I want to talk a little bit about shot listing, like what is the shot list and how it can benefit you during pre-production. It's time to do your shot list. This is huge. I love this part. You need to lock yourself away, put on some headphones, you need to have complete focus, okay? You need to immerse yourself in your movie and start imagining your scenes ahead of time. And this is going to be easy for some of us and hard for others. But I'm telling you, it's huge. It's going to save you in production like you can't imagine. For example, let me give you a real-world example when I did not practice what I preach. Happened on Reckoning. I did extensive shot lists, okay? I did due diligence with my shot listing. However, there was a new scene that I added later in production, or at some point. It wasn't in the original script. It was where we meet Rose for the first time, her character. She's fishing at a stream. Well, I fly fish. I've been around streams a ton, and I just thought, I'll wing it. I'm just going to show up, take her, and shoot. Guess what? Didn't work. I had to go back and get more footage. I pieced it all together, and the scene works, but it's not as good as it could have been. And I knew it, and as much as I didn't want to, I had to create a shot list, really imagine my scene through, and then I had to take her back to that same spot and reshoot. So, just don't learn the hard way. You're always going to end up with a better movie if you plan ahead. And that was a great example. What I shot would have worked, but it wasn't as good as what it could have been. Okay? So a shot list, so we know camera setups. We know every time we change camera, distance, framing, all that stuff, we're changing camera setups, all right? So your shot list is going to list not just the setup, like it's also going to list some other things like the shot number, whether it's interior or exterior, what the camera movement is, what lens you want to use if you're using multiple prime lenses. Maybe you want to use a wide angle lens. What other equipment? Is it on sticks? Do you want to use a gimbal? What actors does it involve? Or just any other notes you have for that shot. So you put all of that in a line on a spreadsheet and then move down to the next shot. Before we do this, I need to describe or explain one thing that happens on set. And we'll go over slating more later, but when you're working through a scene, it goes like this. Let's say we were just setting up the slate for scene 7. So we haven't shot anything for scene 7 on set yet. Well, there wouldn't be an A here. It'd just be 7 and then take 1. Okay? And let's say it was your wide shot. You were shooting that first. So the first AC would get up and say, Reckoning, scene 7, take 1, marker. And then let's say you want to do another take of that same camera setup. It'd be scene 7, take 2. And it'd just go up the numbers here. Now let's say we change the camera. Now we go to one actor. Well, then it would be 7A. And then let's say we do another camera setup, but it's a close-up versus a medium shot. Then 7B, C, etc. You don't use I or O because that can look like 1 or 0, so it look like 70 or 71, right? And so that's it in a nutshell. So you need to know that because it's good to go ahead and identify shots, at least I like to, in my shot list ahead of time. Okay, so here's an example shot list from Reckoning. Skip the order column, just start with take number. I like to predefine those ahead of time. And then I've got interior or exterior, night or day, the shot size, and then any camera movement, my camera angle, equipment, whether it's sticks, gimbal, handheld, etc. Basically, what's holding the camera. And then my lens choice, characters, description. So a shot description of like the basic action, what I want to happen in the shot, and then props and any other notes I have. And then you just continue to do this all the way down for each scene. And then you can do the spreadsheet however makes sense. You can create a tab for each scene or put multiple scenes on the same tab and label them at the top, whatever works best for you. And I have a pre-formatted spreadsheet attached to this lesson. Now, for some of you, this probably sounds really overwhelming. Like working in a spreadsheet is the last thing you want to do. And that's okay. That's normal. I still think it's worth trying because everything you do planning this out is going to save you. I have an order column. Let me just speak to that. You can leave order and even the shot numbering blank and just list out all your shots first. And then once you have all the shots you want for a scene, then just try to imagine the best way to shoot them. Because some shots require moving lights around, okay? And so think about your camera setups and your lighting and just the design of the scene. And you can't predict all of this ahead of time, but if anything makes sense, then order your shots in that model. And so when you get on set, you know, hey, let's do this one first, this one second, this one third, and you have to think about it then. You can just use your energy to be more creative. Because that's really what this is. It's being creative ahead of time so you can be more creative on set. Okay, now another note on the shot list. Regardless, we're going to cover a couple other ways to do this, but regardless of which way you choose, I highly recommend going to location to do this and take your camera. And some of you don't have your camera yet, so that's fine, but you might want to do that later with some of your scenes. For example, for the Rose's Cabin for Reckoning, I went there and with my laptop and sometimes with the camera and just really imagined the scene so that I could just think it through better. It helps to be on location. You see the limitations of the location, or the location itself will give you other ideas for some really cool shots. And then something else I did is I brought footage from another movie that I really liked, and I sat on location and watched that footage and thought it through. So, and you know, one more example with Reckoning. One of the scenes at Rose's cabin was in a chicken coop in the barn, and we'll talk about this more, but I had to take my camera ahead of time because the location was so tight, and I really had to plan my shots out looking through the lens to see what I could physically accomplish. So sometimes that's a necessity, and you don't know until you get there and you really look through your camera and you're like, oh, I can't even get this shot because of the distance that I have or the room that I have, etc. Okay, so that's shot listing in a nutshell with the spreadsheet. Now let's talk about storyboards. Storyboards are kind of a visual representation of a shot, and some directors really like them. Some directors don't use them at all. Here's some storyboards from Reckoning, and just, you know, basic storyboards to show different aspects of scenes or shots. Here's where they're handy. If you're working with other department heads, like let's say you have a DP or a production designer, and you have a storyboard created, whether you can draw or you have an artist draw them for you, if you can just give a storyboard to a DP and like, here's the shot I want, then they're going to be able to just take them like, oh, okay, and they can reproduce that. Whereas if it's just a line in a spreadsheet, then there's a lot left to interpretation, okay? And the other time these work for some directors is just to help them remember what they thought out. So even though you might sit and think out your whole movie, by the time you get to production, your brain's clogged with a lot of stuff. And so it's nice to be able to look at a storyboard and be like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted. Whereas a spreadsheet can be a little cryptic. I stopped doing storyboards, you know, soon, right away in Reckoning. It's just, it's overkill for me. It takes too much time. It's not worth it. But what I do rely on besides my shot list is a thing that I call shot maps. So what are those? So here's an example shot map. So what I did is I had already thought out my shots and put them down in the spreadsheet, and then I labeled them and just drew out some basic camera placement and camera movement and labeled these to go along with the spreadsheet. But what this allows me to do is to be on set, instead of reading all these lines in a spreadsheet, I can say, okay, here's my room. That's right. I wanted this shot here and this shot here, and they're going to move from here to here, etc. Another scene that was pretty complicated, because the more actors you have in a scene, the more complicated it gets. But this is scene 13. And in fact, let's look at that scene really fast.
Afternoon. The door was open, so I just...
Of course, Doc. What do you need?
Rose, I came to warn you. Ghost is alive.
That can't be true.
How do you know?
New wanted poster. Man in a mask, southpaw. Shot a man near Bowmantown.
Rose! gotta go after her. She must be terrified.
So you can see I've got 3 actors coming into the scene from different locations. One flees the scene and the other 2 actors converge and finish the scene out at the window. Well, I knew because I'd been at this location, again, that helps. And I knew there was some limitations I had to work with. And also having more actors makes it more complicated, as I said. So I had to really think things through and draw it out. Even though this might look simple, it helped me a lot to have this to reference and think through later. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Some directors, like Steven Spielberg, are known for their highly planned out action sequences, and others might do less. But the only right or wrong is, you need to plan in some way, because, again, like I keep saying, the more you plan now, the more creative you'll be able to be on set. And then even if you can't think on your feet, just like I thought I could do with my daughter at the stream, because it's just 2 of us, and so there wasn't any chaos going on, I still would have benefited from planning. It would have been I just would have gotten better takes. Action step. You need to work through your film scene by scene and plan this stuff out. Don't forget the purpose of the scene. How are we entertaining the audience? What emotions do we want the audience to feel? Remember the example I gave from Reckoning at the end when I used angles to just enforce in the audience's mind, hey, this little girl's going against this giant of a villain, right? Or the Dolly Inn when she was caught off guard about the gun. Think about all the ways you can impact the emotions, or fulfill the emotional goal of the scene. And then reference movies that you like. Like I said, when I went to the cabin, I brought footage from a movie that I liked on my laptop. It was the movie was Ghost in the Darkness, Val Kilmer and Michael Douglas. It's a really good movie if you haven't seen it. There was one scene in the Ghost in the Darkness that I wanted to emulate in Reckoning in the cabin. So I brought it, I studied the scene, all the camera moves and stuff that they did, and then thought that through in the space that I had, and then did my shot list on the spreadsheet, and then did my shot map. So whatever combo works good for you, I recommend you at least try the spreadsheet and the shot map route and see how those work. And I think you'll feel really good about what it allows you to accomplish. And then it's going to give you new ideas when you can think in the calmness of pre-production versus the chaos of production. If you'd like to learn more about this stuff, check out Write and Direct. Write and Direct is cohesive training on filmmaking that you'll be hard-pressed to find anywhere else. I take you from idea all the way through post-production with no stone left unturned. You're going to learn how to do it all step by step. So check it out, writedirect.co, and I hope to see you there.